skal du prøve rundt?
And I think we are live now. Sorry for the short delay for those of you watching live. I would like to say welcome to all of you viewing now. This is the Food Innovation Talk number 10 presented by Danish Food Cluster. Today we are at the headquarters of Europe's hottest startup at the moment, recently awarded by the Tech 5 competition among more than 100 startups across Europe. Too Good To Go was established in 2016, and today they have more than 10 million users globally, representing 11 countries. Together, all these users have saved more than 15 million meals. These are all remarkable numbers, and these are one of the reasons why we have been looking very much forward to come here to discuss food waste with a true frontrunner. This episode is presented together and in collaboration with Food Supply. For all of you watching, I know and I'm sure that you have different perspectives and opinions about food waste. So please share your questions, share your perspectives with us live by filling in the form right next to the video. Then we can bring them in the discussion here. And now, Mikkel, I'm very happy to introduce you to this episode. Mikkel Fogh, the country manager of Too Good To Go.
Thank you so much, Thomas, and thank you for coming and talking about food waste with us.
Yeah, and we're happy to be here. And to begin with, can you just start by telling why do we talk about food waste at all?
Yeah, exactly. I'd be happy to, and that's exactly one of the topics here today that we're going to be talking about, why we talk about food waste in the first place. We'll also talk about what is Too Good To Go, and we'll talk about thirdly, how can you as consumers at home contribute in the fight against food waste. So let's just kick it off by talking about why are we talking about food waste. And that has a lot to do with this graph right here that shows the temperatures on the globe, the variations in the temperatures since we started measuring them almost 130 years back. So basically what we can see from this graph is that the globe is sizzling. The last 15 years that we just went through has been the 15 hottest years on record, and that should cause some concern with everybody who looks at this. Of course, it's nice that we here in Denmark can stay on the beach from May until September and sip cool drinks, but in other parts of the world, these increasing temperatures creates a lot of problems. This is a graph showing the development of weather-related disasters on the globe in the last 30 years, and we can see that when the temperatures are rising in the way that they are at the moment, we also see a large increase in storms and floods and disasters like that across the globe, and that means that we should do what we can to decrease this increase in temperatures. The increasing temperatures, this is a graph showing the increase in temperatures on the globe correlated with the amount of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. And we can see that there's a clear correlation between greenhouse gases and rising temperatures on the planet. If you ask anybody but the President of the United States, this is a fact, and this is something that is caused by people and human activity. When we do more of big activities, we increase the carbon emissions to the globe, and that means that we get increasing temperatures on the globe. All of these greenhouse gases that we emit to the atmosphere each year, they come from a variety of different sources. The biggest ones are electricity and heat, it's agriculture and land, it's industry and it's transportation. These are all pretty good reasons to use some resources and to let some greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. But there are also reasons that we let out greenhouse gases that are just terrible reasons. And one of them is food waste. Actually, food waste is the 6th largest contributor to greenhouse gases and as such to global warming. A lot of people don't know this, but that actually means that food waste has a big environmental impact that we should do everything we can to decrease. Greenhouse gases account for around 7% of all food waste accounts for all 7% of all the greenhouse gases that we let out into the atmosphere. And loosely translated, that means that we can basically slow global warming by about 7% each year if we stop throwing out food and if we stop producing excess food. So that's a very good reason to stop throwing out food, and it would be a very positive impact to the climate changes right now. So food waste is a massive issue, and we here at Too Good To Go thinks that the biggest issue is this environmental impact that food waste has. But food waste also has a lot of other issues related to it. One is the social impact. that 807 million people starve on the globe each year, while other parts of the world throw out around 1/3 of all the food that they produce. That is a big social problem that we should do what we can to solve. And there's also the economic aspect of food waste, that food waste accounts for around $1.2 trillion each year. Those money, as a global society, we could use that much, much wiser if we wanted to. So food waste is a massive issue for these three main reasons, and that's why we here at Too Good To Go and Food Supply today, Food Cluster today, is talking about food waste in the first place. Food waste is so important and such a big problem that the UN has made it part of their Sustainable Development Goals to reduce food waste. That belongs under Goal 12, which has to do with responsible consumption and production. And specifically, goal number 12.3 talks specifically about food waste. And the UN says that by 2030, we should halve the food waste per capita at the retail and consumer levels in each country around the globe. And we should also do what we can to reduce food waste along the value chain up until that point. But the reason the UN talks about food waste at the consumer level and at the retail level is that is when most resources has been sunk into the food. So basically, if you throw out corn in the field, it's not such a big problem because you haven't spent any gasoline driving it around the country, and you haven't heated it up to bake it into a bread and stuff like that. You haven't sunk a lot of resources into the corn at the field. But when you approach the end of the value chain, that means at the retail and at the consumer level, there has been a lot of resources other than just the production value of the food sunk into that food, and that's why that's where we need to do the most efforts to decrease food waste, because that's where the environmental impact is the biggest at the end of the value chain. And that brings me to what is Too Good To Go, and why do we get to talk to all of you people across Europe today. First and foremost, and what people know Too Good To Go for, is being a company with an mission to inspire and empower everyone to take action against food waste. That's what we're here to do, and that's what we work to do every day. And that work starts with our app for iPhone and Android, of course. And this app that we have and that allows us to fight food waste, what it does is that it takes food that is available at restaurants and supermarkets and bakeries across Europe and puts it available for sale to consumers in the local areas of those businesses. So basically, if you are a bakery that knows that you're going to have some leftovers at the end of the day, you can put them up for sale on Too Good To Go. Consumers in your local area can then reserve them on the app and come and collect them when you're about to close your bakery shop. That's the core functionality of Too Good To Go. And the reason that works is that when you're a bakery or a supermarket and has had a bakery for 10 years, you know the amount of waste that you're going to have, and you know that it's going to be around the same amount of waste every day. So basically, you can put that up for sale automatically. The beauty of Too Good To Go is that the bakery or supermarket or whoever store has joined us does not need to know exactly what they're going to throw out, because the agreement that we've made with our consumers is that they're going to get a magic bag full of whatever was left from that store. So basically, what the consumer picks up at the end of the day is going to be a surprise, because it's going to be a surprise to the bakery what's left at the end of the day. And that is what we succeed with, that we create this expectation that you're going to get something really nice and you're going to get a lot of it for a good price, but you don't know exactly what you're going to get. And that's how we can fight food waste, because it wouldn't have anything to do with fighting food waste if we promised consumers that they could come and pick up 5 bananas. Then it would just be another sell. But this is fighting food waste because it allows the store to put the food into the hands of the consumer, who can then take it home and cook with it or eat it or freeze it or give it to their neighbors. So basically, we depend on the store and the consumer to make this effort in order to make sure that this food is not thrown out. That is the core functionality of the Too Good To Go app, and that's how we have been able to spread to 11 countries in just around 3 years, because this works in every country that we're in Europe, and it works really, really well. The app, and we have a lot of happy consumers, is what you can see on the images here. The app is sort of the starting point of our fight against food waste. This is some of the Danish partners that are in here, and that's both gas stations and cafes and supermarkets and bakeries, as you can see from this slide. The app is a really good starting point for fighting food waste, and that sort of gets the consumer's attention towards food waste. That's what we can do with this transaction. It also means that we can take people into our universe and start to educate them about food waste. And that's actually sort of the bigger mission of Too Good To Go here, that there's something that we can do outside of the app as well, outside of our core product. We call that work the movement because we believe that we actually contribute positively towards the movement against food waste that there is. And this movement work is most dear to us, and that's where we believe that we can make the biggest impact. Because one thing is getting people to pick up the stuff that was left in the retail stores in their local area, but the biggest change is when we can get consumers to actively think about food waste in their homes, and we need to contribute to that as well in order to fulfill our mission. The movement work, we divide that into 4 pillars, and I'm just going to present those shortly. One is the businesses. Of course, we need the businesses to take action. We need them to join Too Good To Go, but we also need them, because they join Too Good To Go, they often start to think about what kind of products that they buy and how much that they buy. So we need to activate the businesses in order to make sure that we get positive impacts throughout the value chain, because they can impact their value chain going all the way back to the farmer. So businesses is one of the big points in our movement against food waste. Another one, of course, as I just said, is consumers. We need them to help pick up some of the food that ends up being left over in the stores. But we also need them to take action at home and think about what is in my fridge before I go shopping. And we need them to think about what dishes can I make with this food that is left in my fridge. That's actually where we can make the biggest impact. When everybody starts thinking like this, that's when we can get to solving food waste at some point. Education is a big one for us because we actually believe that this line of thinking has to be ingrained in people from when they're very little. So we work with schools, both at the primary and higher levels, to educate students about food waste. We've created education programs with big publishers of education material so that people have a chance to learn about food waste, the impact that it has, and how they can help solve the problem. And then finally, we're working a lot with politics because there are some rules surrounding food waste that we need to change in order to solve this problem. There are rules around food that directly incentivizes food waste, and we need to change those rules so that it's easier either to save the food or so that we don't get to a point where you need to throw out food at all. That's sort of the 4 main points that we have when we're talking about the movement against food waste, and these are the 4 groups that we need to activate. And just to show you the amount of interest that there is in this movement and why we actually were named the hottest startup of Europe, is that there has been a significant growth both in our meals that we save on the platform, the app, but indirectly from that also growth in the movement against food waste, because we believe that every meal that we save is an indication that another person has joined the movement and is now thinking about food waste. So when we first launched the app in 2016, we saved 500,000 meals on the platform. That was in 5 countries. In 2017, the same 5 countries saved 2 million meals. Then in 2018, we launched 4 new countries, so we were at a total of 9 and saved 7 million meals. And this year, we're going to end up being around 13 countries, and we're planning on saving 21 million meals. So that's sort of the growth that we've been through. And to us, this shows that this is something that people really care about, both the stores and the consumers. And it's something that people really want to back up. People apparently find it nice that they now have an active way of doing something good for the environment while they're also taking home a nice meal for dinner. Last thing that I wanted to talk about is how can you contribute? And actually, I have a very simple advice. I'm just going to talk a little bit about the politics that we've been through and how we try to impact that, because that has to do with what you can do at home. This is the movement, and politics was one of the pillars that we talked about, just to put this into a nice frame. One thing, and one of the rules that we found out created a lot of food waste actually, was date labeling. Date labeling confuses people in Europe, and that confusion has to do with there are 2 different date labels. One is use by, and the other one is best before. But people consumers generally think that those 2 mean the same, and that creates a lot of unnecessary food waste, because of course, products that says use by this date should be used by that date or otherwise thrown out. That's clear, and nobody should be in doubt about that. But the other one, best before, people think that date also means throw me out when I reach this date, but that is not the case. And people confuse those 2, and it actually studies have actually shown that 10% of the food that is thrown out in Europe is thrown out because people misunderstand the best before date. So that was a really obvious place for us to try and change something. And what we did was that we created a lot of partnerships with a lot of big companies. Some of these are Danish ones, and some of them you know. Unilever is a big national international group. Carlsberg the same, and Arla the same. Urtekram is a very northern group, and then we also collaborated with some of our local partners here in Denmark. And what these partners are going to do is that they're going to change their date labels from saying best before to saying best before, but often good after. And basically what we hope to achieve with this change is, of course, that people think twice before they throw out a bag of rice that has expired, that has reached its best before date. Our hope, of course, is that people just think again and look at the rice and smell the rice and taste them before throwing them out, because our general idea here and the advice that I want to give all of you back home behind the screens is the food is often good after it's reached its best before date. Of course, we backed this up with a lot of education and a lot of media. We created partnerships with 2 famous Danish chefs to create videos that explained this problem and explained what people should do. And this story, with our partners and with the education material that we created, got us over 100 press mentions. And that's sort of what is needed to change this agenda, that we need to get some attention to the fact that we're throwing out food for really stupid reasons. And the best before date is a really stupid reason to throw out food, I can tell you that. So please, before you throw out food, smell it, taste it, and look at it. If everything is good, if it smells all right, if it looks all right, if it tastes all right, then please eat it instead of throwing it out, because the food is all right. So that's one of the big hows, and that sort of ties into our movement work against food waste. That's what I had.
Yeah, perfect and very interesting.
Yeah,
I would like to ask a question, adding to one of your last points. How can the food industry improve this case? Adding the often good after to the label on the food is a partnership with a lot of the food companies and politics organizations. Yeah. But what should the food industry do to improve? I see food waste is not just a matter of the consumption and consumers' behavior, but also the industry behavior. Yeah. What are your perspectives on this?
I think one of the big points in the food value chain, all the way back from the farmers over manufacturers to retailers and then all the way out to consumers, is that we need to change the culture of perfect that surrounds food. We need to make some changes in that, and we need to accept that not every product is perfect all the time, because that we here in lack of a better word for it, we call that culture of perfect. That culture of perfect creates a lot of unnecessary food waste. We have a store in the middle of Copenhagen where we take in some of these products that does not fit into the culture of perfect and resell them to other people. And the reason these products sometimes don't fit into the culture of perfect is some snacks have had a little bit too much pepper in them. Some beer bottles have had their label printed a little bit crooked. Some pallets have not been filled up completely, and then the regular day trade, the regular grocery trade does not want to take those pallets in. But the product inside of the packaging, there's nothing wrong with that. It's the same beer, it's the same snack, and it's the same thing inside of the pallet. So basically, because the food industry has an idea that the consumer always expects perfect, then they want to always supply perfect. But we can't always supply perfect. There is going to be errors, and we need to accept those errors, and we need to not throw out that food, and that comes back to the value chain talk that I just sort of did very shortly. That when we reach the point where the food is actually packaged on a pallet ready to go, then we need to make sure that food is eaten by people, because a lot of resources has been sunk into that food. We need to accept that we can't always send out perfect products. I know this is a big ask, a big giant one, and it totally breaks up with the efficiency paradigm that we've been through and that we've perfected down to the very last pallet right now. But we need to change that. We need to change the culture of perfect and accept food that is not 100% but can be 93 or 97% to make this food available to consumers, because the consumers do want to eat it.
Yeah, and looking at the rise in your users and the estimated or the goals that you have for 2019, do you see consumers as the main driver to fight food waste, or is it the industry who have the role as the driver?
I think that's a good question. I think maybe we can act as a catalyst between between the consumers and the manufacturers. Because what we can now do with all these consumers and all these meals that we've saved is that we can go back to the retailers and to the manufacturers and say to them, hey, see this, a lot of people actually want to purchase this food that is not perfect, so there is a market for it, and people are fine with accepting that not all food in every single store is perfect, and they do actually want to contribute to solving this problem. So I think that's our role here, and that's so basically we aggregate the voice of the consumer and can take that voice back to our partners as they're back in the value chain.
And a further question. You are represented in 11 countries at the moment, and in the future potentially even more. Do you, as Too Good To Go, see a diversification of how food waste is, or the behavior among food waste? Are there different consumer behavior across countries?
No, not so much within Europe, at least. And we, to be honest, we are in Europe at the moment. These 11 countries that we're talking about, these are all European countries. And in this regard, and using our app, it seems that consumers are pretty much the same across the countries, and they have the same buying patterns and stuff like that. Where we can see differences in food waste is and that's not in countries where we're represented, but we have done our research. So in other countries where the value chain is not as efficient as it is in Western Europe, for example, the problem with food waste is often earlier in the value chain. For example, in Africa, a lot of places they have problems with the cooling chain, which means that a lot of milk is spoiled very early in the process. But when it gets out to the consumer, they make pretty sure that every damn thing is eaten. So they have the problem early in the value chain, just as an example. But no, we don't see big variances within Europe.
No. And are you planning to go globally, or are you focusing on Europe just to have a look into the future?
In the very short term, we're focusing clearly on Europe. For the long term, I can't speak about that. Somebody who drives a bigger car than me.
Of course. You have recently opened a physical store shop here in Copenhagen, where we are located now, and you also have launched a web shop. Where we as consumers in Denmark, for at least, can order these products that are not perfect. Is this the future for Too Good To Go to open physical stores?
Yes and no. What that store allows us to do, the physical store space in Frederiksberg, I should say, what that allows us to do is to invite people in a different way than this office allows us to do. Just to make clear to the viewers, we are not currently in the store. We are in our office somewhere else in an industrial area. And what the store allows us to do in the middle of the city is invite people in and take them into this universe of food waste and have lectures to school students. So basically, we take a high ownership of our movement agenda with the store. That's what we're doing it for. And it also gets us some attention from the press and from other players in the food space. And it allows us to talk. Very importantly, it allows us to talk to the manufacturers, because what we had been doing up until we opened the store was primarily talking to the retailers, and it gave us a platform to have a conversation with the manufacturers who are also part of solving this problem. So that's what the store allows us to do. The web shop, just to take that as well, because I see it sort of as split into two, even though it's the same location. The web shop allows us to deal with some of the food waste that we couldn't before, because that allows us to address all the food waste that is in the manufacturer link link of the value chain. We couldn't help with that with our regular app. We couldn't send 10,000 consumers to Unilever's stockhouse, because they hand out a truck of tomato sauce. That's like 30 pallets of tomato sauce at a time. No consumer can deal with 30 pallets of tomato sauce, but we can do that when we have a web shop that we can send out to a lot of consumers.
Oh, so then you're just you're becoming a center for distribution. We're
trying to take this interest that we can see and that we have access to. We have a big interest from a lot of consumers in saving food that would otherwise have gone to waste, and that interest we sort of channel into some other products that also need saving. Basically, is the way that we see it. And the most efficient way for us to do that was with a web shop and a logistics partner.
Interesting. And as a final question, what is the next step for Too Good To Go? Do you see a change in how we are dealing with food waste?
Yes, I do, definitely. I think we have a big job in tying together the value chain, and I think we might be one of the agents that might be able to do that, because up until now it has been very much sort of a competition between farmers, manufacturers, retailers, and consumers. And whenever somebody increased their prices, somebody else lost. We need to make that more of a cooperation, and hopefully, because we're in that pretty unique spot between the consumers and the retailers, and now also sort of the manufacturers, hopefully we can help tie that together and create an increased cooperation between all the links instead of competition. We need to cooperate around this, and that's the way I see solving this problem. That we need to cooperate around it, not fight each other for it, and blame each other, because it's very easy to say, well, it's just the link before me or the link after me who's responsible for all the food waste. We need to take ownership across the value chain and together in the value chain, I think, and hopefully we can contribute to that.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then you also made the link to the UN Sustainable Development Goals. It is a cause that we need to do something about as an industry and as a consumer. So we need to do something.
We do. Definitely.
Thank you, Mikkel. Thank you for sharing your insights and your expertise within this area. Very interesting.
Good.
And for those of you watching, those of you who have asked questions, we will make sure to give you and bring you an answer afterwards directly via email. So once again, I would like to thank you very much, all of you watching. And if you still have questions, fill in the form afterwards and we'll make sure that you get an answer. This was the Food Innovation Talk, episode 10. And if you would like to see the previous episodes, below this video there are a link to the archive where you can find all the videos, and you'll be able to find this video as well later on. If you want to stay updated on news and activities from Danish Food Cluster, please subscribe to our newsletter, and you'll get a monthly newsletter with all relevant activities and events within the Danish Food Cluster. Once again, thank you for watching. Goodbye.
Thank you for watching this Food Innovation Talk presented by Danish Food Cluster. You can always find this episode on our website. Hope to see you soon and have a nice day.